There's now an alarming pattern of well-timed trades and bets made just moments, sometimes minutes, before major policy announcements from Donald Trump. It's prompting speculation about possibly insiders being tipped off on everything from tariffs to war and getting enormous payouts in the process. A few examples, as the Wall Street Journal explains. Before Trump ordered the U.S. military to proceed with its operation to capture Venezuelan leader Nicolás Maduro in late December and early January, a mystery trader placed about $34,000 on Venezuela-related bets, mainly on contracts that would pay off if Maduro lost power by the end of January. The final wager was placed less than an hour before Trump's order. And last month, after U.S. and Israeli forces began to strike Iran, an analytics firm said a group of, quote, suspected insiders made $1.2 million. Most of the accounts had bet on a strike by February 28th, which turned out to be the exact date of the operation. And most recently, on Monday, a mysterious flurry of trading activity in oil and S&P 500 futures about 15 minutes before Trump de-escalated tensions with Iran with a Monday Morning Post on Truth Social. And while there's no evidence that this means insiders are being tipped off, the Wall Street Journal says, quote, still, some market veterans believe news is trickling out from Trump's orbit ahead of these official announcements. Senator Chris Murphy responded to one report about a massive $1.5 billion oil stock trade just 5 minutes before Trump's post this week. Quote, who was it? Trump? A family member? A White House staffer? Quote, this is corruption, mind-blowing corruption. Let's bring in Senator Jeff Merkley, Democrat from Oregon. He is introducing new legislation today that would ban prediction market bets on elections and government actions. Senator, thank you for being here. Do you agree with your colleague that this is corruption?
Oh, absolutely. This is not just where there's smoke, there's fire. Like the fire is so obvious that people are getting information right before critical decisions or actions are taken.
Talk to me about the legislation that you're introducing today.
Yes, this legislation says, in part, you shouldn't be voting or you shouldn't be betting on elections because that's very corrupt because people can place huge amounts through the dark money on campaigns to change the outcome of elections at the last minute. So that's a unacceptable marketplace that diminishes the integrity of our elections. It says that you can't place a bet on either military or government decisions because there's so many people involved in those decisions. Those places where you are placing a wager and there's a ratio on how much you'll receive based on how other people are betting, the insiders are going to win every single time. So it's a corrupt setting, and it's a place where people in government or their friends or their family are going to place these bets because they have that information. They can't resist the temptation, and they can place those bets with crypto, and which makes it hugely anonymous. So they feel the odds of ever getting caught are very low.
The legislation that you're introducing today, you had introduced legislation earlier in the month that would specifically ban elected officials from using these prediction markets. I mean, theoretically, that should be a layup when you talk with your, I know, when you talk with your Republican colleagues about that. Do you sense hesitation, resistance?
Yes, I sure do detect reservations or hesitation. You know, over a decade ago, I started campaigning to end stock trading by members because it's inherently corrupt. We know information the public doesn't have, but you can't prove insider trading, so people are making trades all the time. Or it's also influencing their stock holdings are influencing what they're going to do. It's the same thing with prediction markets. I mean, think of prediction markets as a massive casino where you can bet on anything. Well, that's a problem, and certain areas should be off limits, and that's what this bill does. But my earlier bill was focused directly on members of Congress not being able to place these bets.
I think folks understand the corruption and folks who are able to benefit financially from placing these bets with insider information. But speak to me about what you see as the consequence of just anyone being able to bet on something as sensitive as military strikes or Congress passing a bill. I mean, what is the sociological effect of such an action?
Well, let's step back and think about the arena where this is happening. It's a Commodity Futures Trading Commission. That was all about being able to essentially arrange beforehand to sell or buy commodities at price. Think of pork bellies, think of wheat, think of aluminum, think of oil. Those are commodities. These are not commodities. So this is an enormous loophole that creates gambling on everything, and with huge amounts of potential insider information flowing in ways that can never be detected. But it also can corrupt the process, because say there are huge bets placed, well, let's say on whether or not the U.S. will restore oil to Cuba. And somebody says, hey, now that I've got millions of dollars hanging on this, I'm going to use my influence to try to make sure the government acts to fulfill my side of that bet. So that's another form of corruption where pressure can be brought to bear on officials. And then you have the other side where people are using insider information. So both directions, no integrity, shouldn't happen. We should put those off limits.
In the case of both pieces of legislation, the legislation that is aimed at members of Congress, the legislation that is more broad on this question of just fundamentally what folks should be able to place wagers on, their perspective, it's about what could happen in the future. I think there's still the alarming reality here that it would seem there is insider information, regardless of who that insider information went to. Do you think it makes sense for Congress to use their oversight power to really get to the bottom of how this information is being shared, with whom it's being shared, and how it is then making its way to these markets?
Oh, absolutely. That's a key function of Congress, is oversight of the executive, and it's a key function that's been absolutely missing. We have a rubber stamp Congress, and both the House and the Senate, they have no interest in investigating these types of corrupt actions, because anything associated with Trump, they are just saying, we will let Trump be as corrupt as he wants, no oversight. And so that's where we stand. Congress is failing that mission.
Senator Jeff Merkley, sir, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
All right.
When we return